Welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, and my guest today is my old friend, Mary Martin. Welcome back to Fiberchats.
Hi, Irina. It's funny that you say old friend because I think we did an interview about 2 years ago where we
Yeah, it's
met,
been
and now it feels like we're old friends.
great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we've been old friends. We see each other at all the festivals. We talk a lot. So, yeah,
Yeah.
my category of old friends. Well,
Yeah.
welcome back. And today we actually gonna talk about something different. So if you guys haven't watched the interview with Mary Martin, she is the inventor of fission and fusion knitting, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But she also is a brilliant teacher, and her goal is to create a class that designers can attend and local yarn stores can attend and learn the techniques that she invented and use it in their designs. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of the classes, tell us a little bit about the fission and fusion knitting.
Okay. Both fission and fusion are a reversible form of knitting, and the fusion knitting is really interesting. And this is a part that I don't think anybody's had before, or I put a different cable motif on each side of the fabric. So completely different picture on each side. And the fusion puts the same motif on each side of the fabric. They are related but different techniques. They work in different ways. This is fission knitting. So you can see this motif on this side of the fabric and a completely different motif on this side of the fabric. And what's interesting about this is the reason this works is if you look at the background of this fabric, it's knit in a marl. So that means I'm holding this light green with this dark green yarn held together, and I work both of them at the same time. And then this is what I call the design elements, and they're just formed in one of the colors of yarn.
Right.
Okay. But you can see the motif on this side is different than the motif on this side. Whereas this is fusion knitting. Okay, so if you look at the background of this, you can see it's a very orderly background. It's not knit in a marl, so it doesn't have that messy look. And it has this orderly background because you only work one color at a time. So you work one round in one color, one round on the other color, and you create this motif. And the motif on the front and the back is exactly the same. So interestingly, the fission knitting, which people think is the harder form of knitting, is easier to teach. It's easier to learn because you have more cues in your knitting that tell you what to do. So that's why I'm sort of right now I'm working on sort of spreading the idea of fission knitting. I want more people to knit it. I would love to have more people teach it, and I would really love some other people to try designing with it.
Right. Well, let's talk about this upcoming workshop. So it's a series of three different workshops
Yeah.
over Zoom. The first one is taking place on September 22nd. The second one is October 7th, and the third one is October 21st. But it's also all recorded. So if you guys cannot attend the Zoom meeting, you're going to have the recording and you can replay it over and over again until you get everything. And
Yeah.
people also get access to you after the Zoom meeting, like if they have questions.
Yes. Well, I kind of feel like people have access to me all the time. Like, do you know what I mean, Irina? Like, I've always been like, I've wanted people to learn what vision knitting is. I've wanted other designers from the start to try this technique, and I would love to see another designer make it their own. I figure they're going to do something completely different with it than I do. Um, And so I try to talk to other designers and I just say, I'm happy to talk about why things work and what you could try. Like any designer could talk to me and ask me questions about this at any time. But I feel like there's a lot of background information that you need. Um, like you sort of have to know how to do the technique before you can start designing on it. And this having a workshop seems like a kind of an efficient way to share that knowledge. And then I figure everybody's going to run with it in their own way, right? Like that is, I would love to see that happen, right? Because you look at designers, we all have our own style. And, I look at other people's designs and I say, oh my God, I'd love to see that in Fission. Like they could put that current design on one side and put another one of their designs on the other side. And I think they just need to know how to put that together.
I mean, I think it's like very true because like you can see some designs. We talked about it a little bit before we started this interview. You can look at like similar sweaters, but there's going to be something, and they can use the same stitch dictionary, right? They can use the same
Yeah.
techniques, but there's going to be some design element that makes it very special. And I feel
Yeah.
this technique, it's almost like a stitch dictionary in a sense, because the possibilities of what you can do with it are endless.
They're endless. Like I almost feel like I know you're into math, Irina, too, but I feel like you would take a stitch dictionary and square the number of possibilities because you could take any one of those stitch it things from a stitch dictionary and put any other one on the back, right? Do you know what I mean?
And it's
Um,
actually very interesting because you would think that there is like a limited amount of possibilities, but people come up with like, oh, I can
no.
use stitches from this stitch dictionary, but then I can add this element to that
Yeah.
that's outside and just expands, exponentially, basically.
Like I really feel like the possibilities are limitless on this. And then there's also all the different garments you could put on. Like I only do accessories, but imagine this on a cardigan. Like I'm dying to see this on a cardigan with, somebody opens their cardigan and there's a different design on the inside, but I couldn't design a cardigan. That would be way too hard for me.
Well, I saw you in person teaching that class, that technique at Rhinebeck to Zandy Peters' mom. And
Yeah.
it was like fascinating to watch her like that light bulb moment when she got it, because
Yes.
beginning you like the first couple rows, you like, where does this color go and where does this color go? But then it just all clicks and suddenly like you see how
Yeah.
easy it is. Like when
Yeah.
people see the final result of your design, right? It's intimidating, but the reality of it, it's just two strands and one stitch at a time.
Yeah. I'm trying to make people realize it's easier because I talk about these 3 rules of fission knitting. And if you remember these 3 things, it takes you through the whole process, right? Like it always, if the rule gets broken, you made a mistake. And really, in knitting, the thing you need to know is you want to know when you made a mistake
Right.
that minute. And if you do that, you're fine, right?
Well, tell me like your vision for this series of classes. How was that idea born, and what are you trying to achieve?
So I've been teaching fission knitting for several years now. The very, very first time I taught it to a group, and I think it was a 3-hour class teaching it. And then at the end of the class, somebody says, look at what I've done. I've gone rogue. And what she meant, she holds up the swatch, everybody, how everybody holds up their work at the end. She's designed her own thing. I'm not saying she could write it. I'm not saying, she could publish a pattern in it, but she could knit 2 different designs sitting there on like in front of a Zoom. 2 minutes after, like 10 minutes after she learned the technique, she could design her own thing. And I've seen that happen over and over again. It happens in so many of my classes. Um, so this class is broken up into 3 sessions. The first session is I figure people need to learn what fission knitting is, how you do it. If it's mostly designers in that class, I imagine that part will happen like super fast. And always during the class, it's like I'll get questions like, why do you do this? Why does that work? Why does that work? And those are the most interesting questions, right? Because they're exploring, it's somebody thinking about this technique and exploring the possibilities of it, right? So I'm hoping in a room full of designers, that's what we do, right? Like, how much fun is that? Um, so I figure I'll do that in the first class. And then the second class is so the first class is a part I kind of feel like I've taught over and over again. The second class I've never taught before. And it's because to represent reversible cables, I had to come up with a whole new notation for it. And I have to say, that's the hardest thing I've done. And it's actually the thing I'm proudest of. Like, if I designed one thing, the best thing I ever designed, I think, is the notation for reversible cables, because in designing this, and I had help designing it, um, the best thing about it is it's super robust, meaning it works in so many situations and it fully defines what a stitch is. And I need to teach this, and it's a hard concept for a lot of people because I don't think any other patterns have existed where you put both, like two different, I know it's not existed, putting cables of two different kinds on one chart. And so that's what I'm hoping to teach. And so my homework after the first class is I'm going to ask everybody to go home and design two different designs, like two tiny swatches, two one-sided patterns. And during the class, I'm going to choose two of those, like a pattern from one person, a pattern from the other person. We're going to knit them together and fully write the pattern for
Wow.
it so that they understand that technique, right? And this is something I've spent hours and hours creating the technique and the symbols and all that. And I use a program called Stitch Mastery. I think you know what Stitch Mastery is, but it's a really good program. And I think a lot of tech editors use it. So if you use it, it's very helpful. Anyways, I've never shared my Stitch Mastery library with anybody before, but what I'm hoping to do is share this library with you. So if you choose to design in it, um, it'll it'll just save you a lot of time, right? Like you'll have all the symbols, just like we have all the symbols for all the common cables. You'll have all the symbols and all that for these reversible cables. And Stitch Mastery is really nice in that you chart it. And I'm a very visual person, so I chart my designs, and Stitch Mastery kind of spits out your instructions for you.
Right.
It's really nice. So, I'm hoping that by doing that, I make it much easier for somebody to do. And then in the third class is only 1 hour, and it's really not even a class. I think Christine, who's hosting my event, she called it a bonus session. And what it is hopefully everybody who takes a class goes home and designs their own little swatch. And we come back and we talk about what you can change or how you can, I don't know what questions are going to happen. It's like just a chat session, but really that chat session could be one-on-one with me anytime in the future. Like I'd be happy to help or work with anybody on whatever they want to do with this. Like,
I mean,
I just think it'd be fun.
it's gonna be definitely fun. And I find also that classes like this, they just put like your brain on a burner, it's like such
Yes,
like all the ideas that you didn't even think you have flood.
yes.
Like I took a class with one of your students who is going to be in your class, Shayna Billow,
Oh,
head design. And it was just
yeah.
hour and a half head design. And then the homework was to design a hat. And that hat is my best selling pattern. Like it
Wow.
more than 5,000 downloads. So,
Yeah.
and it was like, just the idea of that design came during the class. Like I would never
Yes.
design that hat. So, who do you see as your target audience for this class? Who are you trying to get to take this class?
Okay, so the class is actually called Fission Knitting for Designers and Independent Teachers. And I feel like this is, I'll talk about the teacher piece. Okay, so anybody who likes to play with cables, like I think you have to love cables to like my stuff. So if you like to play with cables and just make up your own stuff, that's great. Or if you are a designer and you want to try incorporating a different technique into your work, that would be great. The other thing that happened was before I thought of doing this class, I started teaching another class called Fission Knitting for LYSs. So Fission Knitting for yarn stores. And my vision was, so I live in Canada and I can't teach everywhere,
Right.
right? And I think, especially with techniques that look scary, a lot of people want to learn it in person. And so I would have people ask me, when are you going to come teach it here? Or how can I learn it in person somewhere? And I didn't know. And so what I started doing was I started teaching a class to the teachers at yarn stores so that they could take my material. And I know people who work at yarn stores have more than enough work to do, right? Like they don't need to design a whole class. So what I do is I teach them how to fission knit and I give them a package of notes that they can then give to their students.
And
And
that's
that has worked really well.
yeah.
It works really well. And I've had a lot of yarn stores start teaching it. But then those teachers, some of those teachers who work at yarn stores started saying, can I go teach this at an event? And I was like, I'm not so keen on that because my concern was that if they're using my notes, that more than one teacher might apply to teach at an event with the same
Right.
program, right? And so I thought, well, maybe I'll teach you to design your own thing, and then you can just teach your own piece. And so that's why I've lumped kind of the teachers and the designers together. And I think most people who teach at like festivals and all that design as well. So it's all that same category. So it's actually a big group of people that I see that this might work for, right? And
Do you
yeah.
think that people who are not designers but love doing it for themselves, like to experiment for themselves, can take this class as well?
Yeah. Like, so I think, like I was saying, like you can pretty quickly put together two motifs, right? Like people do this all the time. But I'll also be talking about why some motifs won't work on top of other motifs, what things that will ruin the reversibility, things like that. So there's a lot more that you can kind of, I just feel like if you've talked to somebody who's done this for a while, it might give you a heads up as to what to watch out for
Right.
so that when you're designing, you aren't going to fall into those same traps that I did.
I mean, I find
Right.
that it's very generous of you to not only come up with a concept, but to want to share it with the world and to teach others how they can share it with the world.
Well, I've had people say that to me before, but I don't really feel like it's generous. It depends on what your goals are. Right now, I feel that fission knitting's at the stage where if I stop talking about it or I die or whatever, it's not going to exist anymore because nobody else is going to do it. And I would really like it. I don't know if it's a legacy that I want, but I don't actually even care that it's linked back to me. I just feel like there's this knowledge. Like, think of all the knowledge that we have in knitting that has come from all these different people. If those people didn't share it, we wouldn't have it, right? And with fission knitting, I feel like in all these years of knitting, nobody else has come up with it. So we might have to wait another long time before somebody else comes up with it. And why make anybody else wait?
Right.
Like, I think it's cool. Why wouldn't I share it? So the other thing I want to say, Irina, is I've had other people, like when I've talked to people about this class, they're like, especially other designers, they were like, I didn't know you'd be okay if I used your technique because I know we all respect each other's intellectual property and all that. But I kind of feel like this was never meant for me to keep. Like, I got the knowledge. It was never meant to be mine only. It's meant to be shared.
Right.
And so I'd really like to do that.
So
So
how long are the classes? How long is each class?
the first 2 or 3 hours. So I don't think we'll have any problems filling those 3 hours because I'm sure we have lots of ideas to talk about. And the last one's an hour, but who knows how long that'll be. I'm happy to just talk about this stuff.
Mary, can you show some other examples of your work so people can just see and get the idea of what's possible with these techniques?
Sure. This is, I call the secret garden design, and it's got lots of different, you can do wraps. This is a baby blanket, but you see these leaves on this side. And this is the other side. So I call it secret garden because I kind of was thinking of like a fenced in garden. So this was one side was meant to be the fence and the other was supposed to be the trees on the inside.
So pretty.
Thank you. I love
Okay.
that one. This is the Comet Trails wrap, and this has all sorts of different variations. But the wrap part is the interesting part because I do it in 4 different colors. So you can see a burgundy and a white on this side, and the other design on the other side is gray and pink. And so this is just an extension of what I'll teach in class. Like once you know how to do the 2-color, you can do the 4-color. It just
That's
is
great. I
it
didn't
naturally
even
falls
realize
out.
that. That's something new I learned today.
Okay. Have you ever seen my 6-color?
No, show us.
So do you want a bit of a story about how fission knitting came about?
Sure.
So my first technique was the fusion technique, and then I work with Kate Atherley as tech editor. And Kate said to me, if you're going to create notation about this, you need to think about all the situations you're going to use this technique in. And I said, okay. And so, you define what your problem is, you define the scope of your problem. And I thought, what I do is I put cables on 2 sides of the fabric in 2 different colors. And then I thought, 2 colors, is that limiting the scope of the technique? And so I thought, well, I have to try this with 3 colors. So I did. And I have the sample that I knit. This is a sample. This isn't published.
Mm-hmm.
But do you see there's
Right.
dark blue, light blue on that side, and burgundy and blue on this side. But the design on each side is the same because that's all I knew how to do at the time. And so I knit this 3-color thing. And then I thought, how do I get more colors in? And I thought, when you knit this, you do 1 color, 1 row of 1 color, 1 color row, next color, 1 of the next color, and then you use slip stitches. So you're slipping past 2 rows. And I thought, if I try to put more colors in, I'm going to just be slipping past too many rows, because if you slip past too many rows, you get this big loop. And I thought, well, I don't want that to happen. So I thought, well, if I held yarns together, like in a marl, I can get more colors in. So I went from 3 colors to, this is also unpublished because this is hard to do, 6
Oh my
colors.
God, that's
So,
so beautiful.
okay, so this has 3, I call these the 3 cool colors on this side and the 3 warm colors on that side.
This is
Okay,
gorgeous.
so that's actually the first marled piece I ever knit before in my life. And then, but when I was doing this, I was practicing the cables. And so I was practicing the cables on one side because I'd never done cables with a marl and doing this with the color. And I had the swatch, put it down, and my husband picked it up and he said, look, you can't see the design through on the other side. And it was like light bulb, like I can put 2 different designs on each side. So that's how it happened. So the other 6-color design I have is this, because this was so hard to do. I never wanted to write the pattern for it. So I did this because it was much easier. It doesn't actually even have cables, but this you can see you knit in 6 colors in the background, and then you just bring each of the colors forward. And that's fission knitting because you're breaking the marl apart to bring 1 color forward.
I mean, I have
So
one thing to say. I think we do need more of this in the design world because it just completely different. Like it's something that you don't see, and it's beautiful and it's very inventive. And yeah, guys, any designers out there or teachers, you need to take this class, learn how to do it, and design more with this technique.
yeah, like I really think it's doable by anybody. Like I know people think it looks scary, but I just think it's so doable.
Right. No, like when I was watching you explain it to Zendi's mom, like it was that understanding that like it looks complicated, but the reality of it is just manipulating to strength of yarn, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And people have done that before. Like there's marl, I think it's called marl, where people have split the marl apart before and created designs that way. They just haven't put it together. It does require a certain combination of stitches to force the reversibility,
Right.
but it's only the smallest tweak on the other stuff. Yeah.
No, it sounds and looks amazing, and I hope that you're gonna find a lot of very talented designers taking this class and running away with this technique because it deserves it.
Thank you, Irina. But can I just put something else out there is if you don't want to take this class, and I'm totally fine, and you have questions about the technique or want to learn about it, like just reach out. I'm happy to tell you about it. You know, you'd probably learn a lot of it yourself if you just knit one of the patterns. You'd see exactly how it works.
Right.
And I just think this is one way. We all learn in different ways. I think this is one way to efficiently pass on the knowledge, but learn it your own way, right? And I'm happy, perfectly happy for you to do that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put all the information about how people can find you on Ravelry, on Instagram, and all your
Thank you.
socials. So if you guys have questions, or if you want to try a pattern, or if you want to sign up for that class, all the information is gonna be in the description of this video. I wish you the very best of luck. I think it's an excellent idea. I'm very excited to hear more about this class.
Thanks, Irina.
And it's always a pleasure to have you on my channel and seeing you.
Well, you know, I love talking to you.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Mary.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.